Right, let's jump straight in. Welcome to this explainer where we are unpacking the absolutely epic and frankly incredibly turbulent life of Nader Shah Afshar. I mean, we're talking about a guy who literally rose from being a shepherd to ruling one of the most formidable empires in human history. We're talking borders stretching all the way from Sind in the east straight through to Dagestan in the north. But as we're going to see today, climbing to the top of the world is one thing. Actually staying there with your mind intact, well, that is something entirely different.
You really have to ask yourself, how does a beloved king, a guy who unified a completely fractured empire, eventually become a tyrant who loots his own citizens and literally blinds his own flesh and blood? That's the core of what we're looking at today. We're going to track this dramatic psychological unraveling, seeing exactly how absolute power, immense stress, and some pretty severe physical decline managed to transform a celebrated messiah into an absolute monster.
Part 1. The Shepherd King's Peak. Before we get into his peak years, I want you to picture something, a historical bookend, if you will. Imagine a future ruler, casually walking up the steps of his own grand palace, but buried right beneath those very steps are the exhumed remains of his absolute greatest enemy, placed there intentionally, so that with literally every single step he takes, the flame of his revenge is extinguished. Keep this incredibly striking image in the back of your mind, because by the end of this explainer, we're going to reveal exactly whose grave this was and how it just perfectly captures the tragedy of this whole story. Okay, to really understand Nader Shah's peak in the 1730s, we have to look at the immense, crushing pressure he was dealing with. Managing an empire of that size meant balancing three huge challenges. First, you have to maintain peace among fiercely rival religious sects. Second, you have to keep a colossal, 375,000-strong army completely loyal. Because let's be real, an unpaid army is just a heavily armed rebellion waiting to happen. And third, you have to ensure the ordinary citizens remain economically prosperous enough that they just don't revolt.
Part 2. 3 Pillars of Stability.
So the first challenge, religion. Iran was majority Shia, while a massive chunk of Nader's army, the Afghans, Kurds, Uzbeks, Turks, were Sunni. Seriously, one spark and the whole empire burns down. So he attempts this incredibly ambitious move of religious diplomacy. Nader actually proposes to the Ottoman Caliph Mahmud I that Shia teachings be accepted as the fifth authentic school of Islamic thought, the Jafari jurisprudence. It was a massive, unprecedented bid for Muslim unity. The response? Well, Caliph Mahmud considered the Iranians sworn enemies due to their ongoing wars, so he literally threw the letters in the trash. So yeah, the international bid failed completely. But crucially, Nader's own personal neutrality, diplomats even claimed he didn't follow any religion himself, kept the domestic peace intact. He just refused to play favorites.
Next up, that army. 375,000 soldiers. Let that number just sink in for an 18th century force. Nader's golden rule was actually pretty simple. Even if the empire goes totally bankrupt, you pay the soldiers on time. After his conquest of India, he showered his troops with unimaginable wealth. We are talking a full 1-year advance salary for every single Iranian soldier, plus a 6-month bonus pulled straight from the Indian loot. He gave them 0 reasons to ever turn on him.
And that brings us to the economy. The year is 1740. Nader Shah is at the absolute zenith of his power. He's completely flush with the plundered wealth of India, and he makes a breathtaking announcement. He waives all taxes across Iran for 3 entire years. 3 years! This sparked a brief, absolutely brilliant period of prosperity. Honestly, if he had just stopped right here, history would probably remember him purely as a savior.
But you guessed it, he didn't stop. Part 3. Descent into Madness.
This unraveling didn't happen overnight. It was more like a rapid sequence of 3 consecutive blows that completely broke him, both physically and mentally. First off, his health takes a terrible nosedive. Years of exhausting wars and heavy drinking completely ruin his liver. Then all his teeth fall out. He's forced to swallow his food whole, which leads to constant vomiting and this extreme irrational irritability. Now, in this frenzied state, a rebellion breaks out in Dagestan. Nader sends his brother to crush it, but his brother is killed in the fighting. Absolutely furious, Nader marches the army up to Dagestan himself. On the way there, an assassin fires a shot at him. It misses his body, but hits his thumb. They catch the assassin, and the guy claims he was sent by Nader's own eldest son, Crown Prince Reza Kuli Mirza.
Consumed by total paranoia and insecurity, Nader doesn't even wait for a trial. He orders his own son's eyes to be gouged out. And when those eyes are literally brought to him on a plate, the horrific, sickening reality of what he just did finally washes over him.
Nader rushes to his blind, bleeding son in tears. And the prince? He just delivers this chilling line, "By blinding me, you have darkened your empire. You have filled darkness in your life." The ultimate tragedy here? Nader investigates further and realizes it was a courtier conspiracy all along. His son was completely innocent. The regret from that single act pretty much shattered whatever was left of his soul.
Just look at that psychological shift. It's devastating. In 1740, we had this prosperous, generous, strategically brilliant, physically formidable messiah figure. By 1743, after losing his brother, blinding his innocent son, and getting bogged down in this agonizing 3-year guerrilla war in Dagestan, which, by the way, completely drained all that wealth from India, he was a changed man. He's now a depressed, bankrupt, physically broken, and intensely paranoid mad king. And his reign as the Mad King was brutal. With the treasury completely emptied by that failed Dagestan campaign, there's no money left to pay the army. So what does he do? He squeezes the people. He imposes these exorbitant taxes, confiscates properties from his nobles, and actually allows his soldiers to freely loot ordinary citizens. When the city of Shiraz rebels in 1744, he crushes it without mercy. He literally builds minarets out of the skulls of innocent citizens. He slaps a crushing 500,000 tomans tax on the people of Mashhad. The very citizens who once hailed him as a messiah were now actively praying for a new messiah to just save them from him.
That kind of pressure? It's completely unsustainable. Part 4. The Royal Assassination, June 1747. Let's just walk through the pure chaos of that final night inside the royal camp. Rebellions are popping up everywhere now. Nader's paranoia is at an all-time high. He's convinced his own Afshar guards, led by Muhammad Qoli, are plotting to kill him. So he orders his other trusted commander, Ahmad Shah Abdali, to arrest the Afshar guards the very next morning. That night, Nader goes to sleep in the tent of his beloved woman, Chuki, but word of the arrest leaks. Warned that they're about to die, the Afshar guards decide they have to strike first. They descend on the tent, kill a terrified unit guard to hide their identities, and burst in. Nader wakes up, reaches for his sword, but a frantic strike severs his sword hand. Lying there bleeding out, the once great conqueror actually begs for his life, offering them all his wealth. But it's too late. They aren't there for the money, they're there to survive. Muhammad Qoli beheads him right there.
Now when Ahmad Shah Abdali finally arrives at the tent, he's too late to save the king. But he finds the body, and incredibly, nobody has touched Nader's personal belongings yet. Tied to Nader's arm is the legendary 21-gram Koh-i-Noor diamond. Abdali takes it, along with the royal seal ring, right off Nader's finger. And using these massive artifacts of power and legitimacy, Abdali gathers his loyal soldiers, flees to Kandahar, and establishes the Durrani Empire. This is literally the foundation of modern-day Afghanistan.
But what happens to Iran? Part 5, A Legacy of Chaos.
Without a clear successor, because remember, his highly capable son was blinded and ruined, utter chaos consumes the family. His rebellious nephew swoops in, takes the title Adil Shah, and seizes the throne. And just to secure it, he murders over 20 of Nader Shah's sons and grandsons. Every single potential heir is systematically slaughtered, except for one, a 13-year-old grandson named Shahrukh Mirza. They keep him alive in captivity, only to have him blinded a year later by conspirators so he could be used as a helpless puppet king. And that brings us perfectly back to the mystery we set up at the very beginning of this explainer. Fast forward a few decades. A warlord named Muhammad Khan Qajar captures Mashhad. Now, decades prior to this, Nader Shah had executed Qajar's grandfather on conspiracy charges. The tables have officially turned. Qajar captures that blind, elderly grandson, Shahrukh Mirza, tortures him to find Nader's hidden treasures, and then he literally digs up Nader Shah's tomb. He takes Nader's remains all the way back to Tehran and buries them directly under the steps of his palace. Every single time he walked up those stairs, he was stepping on the grave of his family's greatest enemy. Talk about a complete cycle of vengeance. History really is written by the victors, though, isn't it? Nader's reputation bounced around wildly depending on exactly who was sitting on the throne. For 129 years, the Qajar dynasty painted him as this absolute one-dimensional villain. But then, jump to 1925, the Pahlavi dynasty seizes power and they completely resurrect Nader Shah's image, branding him an Iranian national hero, this ultimate symbol of military might. By 1963, they're literally building a grand mausoleum for him in Mashhad. 185. That is the carat weight of the Darya-i-Noor diamond.
the River of Light. It's this massive pink diamond, actually way larger than the Koh-i-Noor, that Nader looted from Delhi back in the day. Even now, it rests heavily guarded inside the Iranian central bank. It's this glittering physical remnant of a totally fractured, turbulent empire.
You know, Nader Shah Afshar just perfectly embodies this tragic cycle of history we see time and time again. A character who emerges from utter chaos to provide this brilliant, desperately needed stability, only to lose his grip on reality under the immense pressures of power, create even worse chaos, and ultimately die violently. It really leaves you wondering, does absolute power just naturally carry the seeds of its own destruction, or is it simply the sheer crushing weight of holding an entire empire together that eventually breaks the human mind? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.